Here's the 25 teams that we have ranked. Last season, we did an excellent job. I think a better job than anyone in the country, as we had 10 of the 12 playoff teams ranked. Because that's how locked on we have this list. It was Georgia was number 1, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. I think that was actually the top 5. Notre Dame, Clemson, Tennessee, SMU, and Boise State in our SpOp 25 going into 2024, which is, I mean, I don't think anyone else in the country had them. Most people did not have Indiana or Arizona State. So 10 out of the 12 teams, not too bad. I think we know ball enough to get your eyes on what we are doing here on the channel and live from the couch. So let's keep diving into this extravaganza with this 25 for 25. North Carolina comes in at 25. The changes for the North Carolina Tar Heels: new head coach Billy Belichick coming back to college for the first time since I think his time at Iowa Wesleyan. But for Bill Belichick, he's back in college again for the first time since the 70s. He has a new offensive coordinator who is being promoted from tight end coach. He was the interim coach last season when Mac Brown stepped away. Freddie Kitchens, who's also a former NFL head coach. And then there's a new DC coming in from UW. That's Billy B's son, Steven Belichick, who did a decent job there for the Huskies. He comes in as the new defensive coordinator again. As this is one of the teams that had a massive overhaul. I think Purdue and West Virginia had more players than North Carolina. One of the few other programs that had more coming in from the portal. I don't know the exact amount, but I think it's around 50 to 60 players, which is absolutely insane. But they did have some losses because, again, there's changes. Their running back Hampton last year, who's now in the NFL. They had a wide receiver, Jones, gone. Eccles on the other side of the ball in that linebacker core with Rutgers. Campbell, that transfers over to Penn State. Atkinson, another loss to the Big Ten at defensive end. And DB Lane. As those are the changes for North Carolina. The key players this season for this up-tempo spread offense. Big pickup, I think, Gio Lopez, who comes in from South Alabama. He's been named the starter for the Tar Heels going into 2025. Should be a great fit. Should be a guy that gets it over the line to getting a lot of wins for this North Carolina team in Bill Belichick's first year. Running back Goss that we see there on the screen, I think he's going to have just as big of an impact that Hampton did and will most likely deliver on the amount of yardage that Hampton produced in 2024. Along with him, they're helping out the running game in the offensive line. Yeah, right tackle Green, left guard Banfield, center Blask. Those are 3 starters coming back who are going to be big roles, big players for North Carolina. They're going to be extra physical because that's how Billy B likes to play. And they also have one of the top 2 linemen coming in from the portal, King from Troy at right guard. And that's a pretty stacked offensive line. They do have, which we're going to talk about on Wednesday's show when we go through our top 25 offensive lines, which North Carolina continues to be on season after season for here at your Sports Outpost. Geez, I can't get that out. Tight end Jake Johnson. I think any of the tight ends really. So there's some pickups from the portal. Also going to be big. Billy B likes using his tight ends. Those guys should be key players in this offense. For their 4-2-5 defense, key players. You got 2 transfers coming in from Boise State. Simpson, House coming in from Washington, coming along with Steven Belichick, who was the DC for Jetfish last season. These 2 guys, I have to double check if they'd actually played high school together exactly, but they both come from St. John Bosco. So the Bosco Bros, not too bad of a linebacker core. even though they are transitioning in. Big other players on the defense coming in from Penn State. Vilbert at defensive end. He's going to be pretty big for them. DBs, you got Allen, Cost, and Dixon, who's another transfer from UW. Yeah, I really like that defense so far. I know, again, it's a ton of transfers, but if there's any coach in the world that knows how to bring in players, get them ready to play some football, the best that's ever been, Bill Belichick is that guy. I've already seen some clips going into the spring that I'm just like, just doing the simple things. This team is going to be good at just doing the simple things, and that's why they're going to win a lot of games. Going into the section for the toughest games for North Carolina. Toughest game, obviously week 1, TCU, big test, no matter what, because the Horned Frogs are going to want to bounce back off of a rough 2024. Going into Chapel Hill, getting a road win, that would be massive for Sonny Dykes and company. But that's the first tough game of the season. Got to go to week 4 then. After that, I would say that's UCF on the road in the Boom House. Frost, who is returning, he had a stint in Nebraska, going to his alma mater after spending time at UCF, looking to probably rebuild that program, especially in the Big 12. They're one of the, unfortunately, the bottom feeders once they move to that power conference, but should be improved. It should be a nice test, though, also for Bill Belichick, getting all his Tar Heels in order for the season, really. I think the only big tough game they have in the ACC, which all the other games should be pretty doable. I know they go all the way to Cal before, I think, week 6. But the big week 6 game they have is Clemson. And then they kind of have a pretty nice schedule. Everything should be very doable. Even the North Carolina State game should be something that the Tar Heels, especially towards the end of the season, should be a more than winnable game. But that week 6 game against Clemson, they do have a nice bye before that. So it might not be as tough as maybe a lot of people think. That was one of our many games that we previewed going into the preseason that we just put out. And yeah, I think Bill Belichick's going to deliver our prediction for the Tar Heels. And the reason why we have a lot of the teams where they're at is because we kind of teams at where they're going to end in our top 25 going into the season. And we have them winning 10-9 games, which might be ludicrous, might be crazy, but it's very doable for Bill Belichick. There's no one other in the world that could probably turn over a roster like that. Maybe Rich Rod does it over there in Morgantown for the Mountaineers. You have it here. North Carolina, the number 25 team at your Sports Outpost top 25. The weaknesses for North Carolina, we didn't talk about any wide receivers, and it's going to be the wide receiver production. Is there going to be drop balls? Are they going to be, running clean routes? That's going to be the big thing, I think, for North Carolina this upcoming season. I think the line's pretty solid, solid enough to get the run game going, and especially once they get into that post-week 4 game, this team is going to be just demolishing I think a lot of what they have in the ACC, because I don't think there's no Louisville, there's no SMU. I think Miami's on there, but they should get business done against the Hurricanes. I don't think they even play Florida State. So this is why North Carolina is number 25. So let's move to 24. Utah. We're in Salt Lake City. Kyle Whittingham's maybe last season for the Utes. Disappointing 2024, but 2025 should be a little bit of a change. Last year, I think we had them in the top 10. Huge mistake, massive mistake. We thought Cam Rising would rise to the occasions, but there's the early season losses, especially the one on the road against Arizona State. That was just nasty taste in our mouth, unfortunately. But the changes for Utah, new offensive coordinator Jason Beck, who's actually a former BYU Coug, comes over from New Mexico as Bronco Mendenhall moved to Utah State. That means there was a lot of people in getting out of Albuquerque. Jason Beck is one of those. We got a new quarterback as Cam Rising, and the quarterbacks after him kind of basically got out of town. We'll talk about that here in a little bit for key players. They lose a gnarly running back in Bernard, who is pretty reliable-ish, even though I think they only averaged like 3.4 yards last season. Wasn't the best, but, got the job done in most of those games that they won. Kuth, the tight end, big loss to the NFL, and then also Singer at wideout is another player that they lost this off season. And so those are the key changes. And into the key players, and got a nice influx, I think mostly on the offensive side of the ball for the Utes. Devin Dampier is going to be the big player for them, coming from New Mexico, along with Jason Beck, the coordinator. He also has a couple of other Lobos at wide receiver, Davis, Rogers at running back, and I think there's another running back that I'm just cannot remember. I don't have it in my notes. And the offensive line is the kind of headline of this attack, because they have the best linemen in all of college football. Right tackle Spencer Fanu. Next to him, they have right guard Moko Fisi. At center, they have Kump. And then on the other side of the line, Lomu. A lot of experience between those four. Togiai, who's at left guard, came into the season last year as a starter. Should be developed to make this one of the best offensive line, if not one of the top 10 offensive lines in all of college football. And that's the reason why they are ranked number 24. Everything else is kind of a cherry on top, especially on defense. The 4-2-5 defense that they have coming into 2025. You have Bart, who's returning at linebacker. Teo Johnson, defensive back, with Snowden next to him out there covering the field. And then Spencer Fanu's brother, Logan Fanu, at defensive end. Not too much returning, but Utah has been pretty solid on defense year in and year out. That's the reason why they were in games last year. They had 6 of the 7 losses in 2024 were one possession games. Good defense. I know they lost also O'Toole. I don't think I had that in the changes to the NFL, but didn't have like that big of a year. There was a lot of shuffling on the bookends for the defensive line just because of injuries. That was another thing that kind of plagued them. When you lose players to injuries, you're just not going to have a good time. The weaknesses and tough games this season, the Utes got 5. Week 1, they are at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena against UCLA, taking on Deshaun Foster and his Bruins. Should be a nice test on what they're going to be this season. We should see a great display of their defense, shutting down whatever UCLA throws at them. Then we got to go to week 4 against Texas Tech. That one's at home, which is nice. The Red Raiders, who were in our way too early top 25, but just right out, they're probably like 26, 27 for us. If a lot of these teams, like last year, I think we had like UTSA and Liberty, who had some early season losses. That was like, okay, we flubbed it there. But they're in the 20s. I don't think that's going to be for Utah. That actually should be a game the Utes win at home. The big game in week 6 against Arizona State. They have a nice bye before that one, which is nice. Last year they flubbed it on the road in Tempe. They should not maybe do that. Maybe that's the one game the Sun Devils lose this season, is to Utah, as we don't have a lot of them up there, and potential losses for, again, Kenny Dillingham and his Sun Devils. But again, Utah has that bye. Should make that game not so tough. But again, it is Arizona State. They're going to be excellent in the trenches. Week 7, the Holy War against BYU. I think maybe that should be a week 8 game. Maybe I got that one wrong. It's a week 8, week 7. Either way, It's against BYU on the road in Provo, Utah. Even though it's the same state that they're in Provo. They're very loud. They definitely want to get one back on the Utes. It was kind of a game BYU stole a little bit last year in Sam Eccles. I don't think they even scored a touchdown until the second half, and it was just big play after big play after big play, and it just dug Utah in a hole. We'll see if that happens again this year. Probably not. It's going to be a close affair, I think, just like technically last year. Just not a rough first half. I think both teams are going to jockey and be disciplined enough in the trenches to make that one just a boring slugfest, but that's what we love here from the trenches of my count. As we go back to the full screen, week 12, Kansas State. That one's at home. Nice home game. Very doable against a tough Wildcat team. That should be this season. Kansas State's ranked for us. So we have three ranked teams here at Your Sports Outpost that Utah faces. So that's their three big ones. We think they're going to get at least 1 to 2 of them. They should be beating UCLA, should be beating Texas Tech. We think they're going to go 10-2, 9-3. If the 3 games they lose, it's most likely going to be one of those 3 ranked teams, and then probably Texas Tech. The weaknesses for Utah, it will not be necessarily the defensive line, but the containment that the defensive line has to get done. If they struggle with mobile quarterbacks, that was somewhat of an issue in containing. Also, again, they had injuries, so when you got a guy stepping up, he's not going to be the same quality, so the containment might not be there. So if they stay healthy, things should be good, but it is a long college football season that might lose that containment. That's our big weaknesses for Utah in 2025. 23 is Missouri. Not a lot of people are ranking Missouri. The program being overlooked, we think, even though they did lose quite a bit for Eli Drinkwitz. Come into another season there in Columbia, Missouri. Big losses for them at quarterback, Brady Cook, who cooked a lot for the Tigers. Running back Knoll, and then some elite wide receivers in Burden and Weiss, who are now in the NFL for the Bears and Dolphins. I don't know if you saw that highlight of Quinn Ewers getting his first touchdown pass to Weiss Jr. there. They also lost some top offensive linemen. The second tackle off the board, Menbao. And then the other tackle, Bryant, who was later on in the draft that they lost this past off season. Some other pieces on the defense, linebacker Flagg Jr., defensive back Carnell, and then a huge loss at defensive end in Johnny Walker. But those are the changes for Missouri, as they had some pretty good pickups from the portal and to the key players. I think the biggest player from the portal, production-wise, that we're going to see this season is going to come from Missouri, and that's at running back. Ahmed Hardy from UL Monroe. He was a freshman All-American. He might be another All-American his sophomore year. Wide receiver Coleman Jr. comes in from Mississippi State. He is a Swiss Army knife, especially for the Bulldogs in a terrible season for Lebby and his dogs over there in Starkville. Comes over from there. Quarterback Bo Prepula finally gets his time to shine as a starter. Comes in from Penn State. Obviously, Drew Aller is going to be the starter for the Nittany Lions. He comes over. Should be a key player. Very mobile. Should work well for this Kirby Moore offense. Offensive line will also be big for Missouri. I think they have some depth here, especially coming in from the portal. But center Tullison, who's been a veteran, longtime starter for them. Then at left guard, who was a transfer last season, coming in from Oklahoma, Green, again at left guard. They They got good Dice coming in from Michigan, who got some playing time over there for the Wolverines. Trouse from Wake Forest. They have Williams the fourth from West Virginia. And I'm forgetting the other guy off the top of my head that comes from the portal, but they got a lot of guys that has built up that depth. We'll talk a little bit more about them for our top 25 offensive lines on Wednesday. The 4-2-5 defense, front six, pretty solid, I think. You have linebacker Newsome, defensive end coming in from the portal. It's a pretty good guy for Georgia. I think it was a former four-star recruits. Wilson Jr. at defensive end. Also, I got Young, who came in from Michigan State last year. Pretty solid for them, and should be a stud, causing a lot of havoc. Along with McLean and West at defensive tackle. No, it's Webb, sorry. And then behind, along with Newsom, you got Trotter coming in from West Virginia. Multiple Mountaineers that have made that mass exodus out of Morgantown. He lands there and should be a starter for Missouri. In the defensive back area, leading a pretty solid and maybe one of the best secondaries in the SEC. And this is why I think a lot of people are overlooking them. You have that solid front six, which means those DBs led by Burks Jr., should be eating up some interceptions, should be locking down some key receivers in the SEC when they come up against these opponents that we're going to talk about. So those are the key players. Toughest games for Missouri, as we have some of those helmets cut off. It's fine. Or maybe, wait up. Can I fix that? There we go. Better. All right. Toughest games. I think Missouri only has 4. Okay. Again, sounds crazy. I think a lot of teams or a lot of people talking about college football are really overlooking Eli Drinkwitz and his Tigers, as they have a pretty comfortable opening to the season. They have the border war, which I think they should beat Kansas. But the first SEC game they have on the docket is in week 4 against South Carolina. That one's at home. Different Columbia for the Gamecocks that they had to come to. Last year, Missouri, it's been a nice back and forth. The winner's usually been the team hosting. Missouri opens up their SEC schedule with a win. Look out for these Tigers, because they are going to be trying to get one of those outside playoff spots, especially if the SEC gets 4 teams in this season. They have a nice bye before that Bama game in week 7, so it's a lot of good preparation. They rode the Tide very close last season. They just came up short later in the second half. Again, the defense is going to keep that game close for them. And that one's at home again. Nice home game. And it's one of the toughest ones. We got Auburn for week 8. Not a lot of people think Auburn are going to be good. We think Auburn's going to be pretty decent, even with a lot of reshuffling for Hugh Freeze and company. But yeah, it should be a tough game, especially later in the season. Auburn should be more of a legit team, especially with that wide receiver core and a pretty solid offensive line. Then they have the final game that we think is going to be hard for them. Is going to be the Texas A&M game, which also is a bye and at home. They do have Oklahoma on the road, but we don't think Oklahoma is going to be much of anything. That's why they're not in the top 25. And we have them going at least 10-2, 9-4. I know that just sounds crazy because they're not ranked in the AP or in other people's polls. But here, they are number 23 because we like their defense and we think the offense has so much potential. The weaknesses for the Tigers. Last year, they had some injuries at the quarterback position, which affected quarterback play. They did beat Oklahoma with a backup quarterback. Very doable game there. Which means, the quarterback play, even with Bo Pripola, who has to prove himself as a starter. He didn't win the job there in Happy Valley for Penn State. That's why he's moved on to Missouri. I think it's going to be a perfect spot for him. Very mobile. Very athletic, which is going to give him a lot of time to extend plays, but that ball distribution needs to be spot on. I think it was the Wisconsin game for Penn State, or maybe it was a Minnesota game. He got some playing time there. Looked pretty decent. Let's see if he can deliver, because if he doesn't, that's the reason why Missouri is going to have a bad time. Number 22 team, one of the few teams that we left out that made the college football playoff. One of the two, that's Indiana. Kirk Cignetti going into his second season in charge there in Bloomington. The changes for the Hoosiers. Quarterback, obviously Rook moves on. We'll talk a little bit more about their new one coming in from Cal. It's just new offensive lineman, and then they lost Weddick and Kadich. Kadich came back, I believe, last season. He was going to go to the NFL. Was like, oh, I'm going to get some NIL money, and came back, and then now he's gone, unfortunately. West, defensive line that they lose. They're at mostly defensive tackle. Kind of a big loss. He was just a big body that was causing a lot of problems. It was a transfer. Came from the MAC, I believe. I think it came from the MAC. Which means, Indiana has a pretty good eye in getting guys in at the transfer portal. And then some other pieces on the defense. A new co-offensive coordinator, Chandler Whitmer, which goes into the key players for the Hoosiers in 2025. We see the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Probably, just like Ahmed Hardy, is going to be one of the biggest gets in the portal from this offseason. Had not a lot to work with, especially at offensive line over there in Berkeley for the Bears. Had some decent targets. Forgetting his last name. That's over at Nebraska. Riser. You lost Ott, but he was a pretty good running back there at Cal. Didn't have the same production that he had in 2023, but still pretty solid. There was another running back. Actually, they lost all their running backs. And then their tight end injuries is gone. But that was only positives for Cal last year. Mendoza should be spreading it out for this offense, as that's the offense. Surratt will be leading a very solid wide receiver core. I think I saw something from PFF. He was like a top 5 receiver in terms of just wide receiver production. He's probably going to do that again this year because of the schedule that Indiana has. And you're going to notice a lot of these Big Ten teams will have a few amount of tough games that they got to go through this season. Surratt will making it a lot easier for the games that are not tough for Indiana. The offensive line, again, a very solid offensive line for Indiana. Coogan comes in from Notre Dame. At right tackle, they have back Smith. And then at right guard, they have Litch coming back as well for them. I think also a decent running back room. It might have the potential to be one of the top 5 running back rooms in the Big Ten. 2 transfers in from UAB and Maryland that I cannot remember their last names. But you have Black there as well, who was the backup last season. For their 4-2-5 defense, linebacker Fisher, who came along with Cignetti and the other Dukes from James Madison, stellar linebacker. I think had great games even in the Ohio State game that they lost. Tried his best against Notre Dame, even though they gave up a 98-yard touchdown to Love. You saw that in the beginning of the show. But yeah, Fisher is back. He's going to be a great piece and should put out the same amount of production just like he's been doing for Cignetti the last 2 seasons. Kamara at defensive end, one of the, I think, best defensive ends in college football this season. I don't know how he's going to be off the board because we saw some high producers that came off of the draft board this past season. Green, who came out of Marshall, I think it's because of the opponents. A lot of doubt maybe in him not producing at the next level, but I think he's going to be a great asset there. I think he's with the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. And then Hassan was another late draft pick. He's with the Detroit Lions coming out of Boise. I think Kamara is going to be kind of in that similar realm, maybe coming off the board late, but a huge producer. The reason why he'll be, drafted next season. Defensive backs, you got Pons and Farrell. Two solid guys that got a lot of turnovers for Indiana last season. And then a transfer portal guy coming in from Western Kentucky, a former Hilltopper that did a solid job against Alabama last year, Wheeler. And he'll be replacing West that we'd mentioned in the changes. Now, Indiana has 4 tough games. Okay? Only 4. The rest of the games should be very winnable. And we're going to talk about our predictions, I think, to start out this one. Because we think they're either going to go 8-4 or 9-3. Not 10-2 like last season. I think maybe these tough games are going to get to them. Because they start off with Illinois in week 4 as their first tough game of the season. Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini should be a great test, even though this one's at home for them. The next one is the week after that. That's on the road in Iowa City against the Hawkeyes, who should be bouncing back in 2025. If they lose to Iowa State, then maybe we cross that game off. And then Indiana only has 3. Everything else should be doable. I don't think they even play Michigan, which is kind of crazy. No Michigan, no Ohio State. They just got Oregon and Penn State to really end off their season. They have a bye for that game in Eugene against the Ducks in week 7. The last time they played in Eugene, they did beat Oregon. That was when Oregon was in the old Pac-12. But we'll see if they can do it again, because that would be a very interesting game if they win. If they win that game, they're for sure a playoff team again. Week 11, they go to Happy Valley against Penn State. We did a preview for actually both those games in the Illinois one. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. They haven't, I don't think they haven't beaten Penn State in a while, but I think it was back when they had the transition of Paterno going out was the last time I think they did beat. No, actually, I don't think they ever beaten Penn State in Happy Valley. They've only beaten the Nittany Lions at home. The last time was when, if you remember, Michael Penix, when Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator for Indiana. Tom Allen was head coach. That was the last time. And then, yeah, it was the transitional year when Paterno came out of Penn State is when the other time they beaten the Nittany Lions. And that's why we have them going either 8-4, 9-3. If they beat the Fighting Alumni, get the win in Iowa City, then they most likely only lose 2 games this year, and that would be against Oregon and Penn State, which means they most likely somehow squeak in and be that 4th team for the Big Ten in the playoff. We'll get to the bold predictions on who and how I think it's going to go down for the 2026 playoff. The weaknesses for Indiana is going to be against elite opponents. Can they get the offense going? Can the defense hold the line enough to get one over, at least on the road for one of those games against Oregon or Penn State? If they can do that, they're for sure in the playoff. But there's going to be an outside chance after that. And then maybe the resume doesn't look so good if they don't have like a key win. Yeah, everything seems very doable for this team. Mendoza is just going to be a guy that we saw last year with Rook, who just goes off on teams. I think we're going to see a lot of blowouts once again for the Hoosiers in 2025, like we saw in 2024. 21. BYU. Kalani Sitake, another season for the head coach there in Provo. The changes are going to be at quarterback. Obviously, a big story in the offseason. Retzlaff having his off the field thing go on, and now he's out there for the Cougs. He's now playing for Tulane. We'll talk about the new quarterback for BYU, who was named the starter here in a few moments. But the other losses at defensive line, Bogna, Magnuson, and Batty. Big boys there. But yeah, big losses there in the defensive line. Hopefully they can replace and be just as solid there, because if they are, BYU is going to be a team to watch. They also lost some weapons on the offense. Marion, who goes to Miami in the transfer portal, and Lassiter, who is out. Those are the changes for BYU. The key players on the offense. Bear Bachmeier is a new starting quarterback, a true freshman starting quarterback for BYU. I think he's going to be solid. In our previews, I think it was for the Iowa State game, we were talking about BYU for sure having packages for him. Now he's looked so good that Kalani Sitake is like, this guy is solid enough. We're going to see a number 47 at the quarterback position. You got to love college football for that. Bear Bachmeier, the guy who I actually was trying to watch last year because I'm in the Southern California area. I went to go see Murrieta Valley versus Rancho Cucamonga, and I literally went to go see Bear, and Bear did not play. He actually didn't play until the tail end of the season. He was dealing with some issues. Hopefully he is healthy for the season, and even if he does go down for some reason, Hillstead and then Bourget are the two backups. I'm a Bourget guy, okay? I'm a Bourget guy, but Hillstead looks like to be the backup for Bachmeier. And really, whoever's starting in quarterback, they're gonna just have so many awesome weapons to deal to, and then the offensive line is also gonna be solid. You have LJ Martin coming back there at running back. He's been a starter at wideout. You have Roberts, who might be an All-American by the end of the season. He is a big player. You saw him there in the intro. And then also coming along with Bachmeier is his brother, Tiger Bachmeier, another transfer coming in from Stanford. He should also be a huge element. We talked about Marion and Lassiter being gone, those weapons. Well, Roberts was there last year, but Tiger coming in should be solid enough. And then BYU should have another wide receiver that should get some touches there. At the offensive line, we have former transfer from Utah State, Lapajo at left guard. Has gotten a lot of playing time for BYU. At center, Mitchell got some starts under his belt last season. And that right guard coming in from Southern Utah, which is at the FCS level. Again, right guard, Safarich. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I did. He is the new starting right guard. On the defensive side of the ball, the linebacker core is going to be the big glue that sticks that defense into a lot of faces. You have one of the top producers, Glasker. You have Kelly, and then stepping up in that role, I think at middle linebacker, Esra. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That linebacker core is going to be one of the best in the country. You heard it here first. Also at defensive backs, you got Wall and Mbanu. Those guys help produce one of the best secondaries in all of college football last season. They were top 5 in interceptions. I don't think they were top 5 in turnovers because some other teams just did some havoc in causing not just interceptions but fumbles. But I would expect this secondary to be one of the best again, like they were in 2024, and why we have them at 21. Tough games and the weaknesses for BYU this season, because we got to talk about the pros that we just got into, but we got to talk about now the cons. Okay, the toughest games. They only got 3. They got the Holy War, which is at home. It's a nice, tough game to have. But again, Utah's going to want to get one back on them because they kind of stole one. They're in Salt Lake City, which is a hard place to win in. Week 8 at Iowa State. I was going to say Illinois State for some reason. But Iowa State is week 8 on the road there in Ames. And then they have a game in week 10 in Lubbock against Texas Tech. That game is before a bye, which is nice. And there's not too much. Toughies. They don't play Arizona State. They don't play Kansas State. They don't play... What's another tough team in the Big 12 that I'm forgetting? I think that's actually it. Yeah, it should be just... No, Baylor. They don't even play Baylor. Oh, no, they do. They do, actually. Never mind. They do play Baylor. I'm expecting BYU to win that game. That's why it's not a tough game. But yeah, they should at least win 9 to maybe 10 games. If they can get the 10 games, they will definitely be in the playoff. We're talking about playoff teams in this top 25. We don't mess around with those teams that have crazy schedules. There's only a few of them in this top 25. BYU doesn't have a crazy schedule. Start the season nice against an FCS opponent. And then it's not really until week 7 where they got to get into the nitty gritty of their schedule and playing some really good teams. The weaknesses for BYU, we just talked about Bear Bachmeier. Bachmeier, the true freshman name starter, is going to be the quarterback play. If he cannot get the ball through the air, and it's just a guy that is running the ball everywhere. He's a very athletic young man. I can tell you this. He has some crazy highlights against some stellar teams here in Southern California that are legit teams. But can he get the ball through the air? He's going to have a lot of weapons and then a lot of help right behind him or next to him in the backfield in Martin. But BYU, number 21, should be a team you should be watching out for, as that was 25 through 21. We're going to get through 20 through 16 and then come back to this page.